Good afternoon, everybody. It's Lisa Moore, your host at Inspiring Talks Brighton, and I am joined by our original host at Inspiring Talks Brighton. This is the first in a new series because, as you know, we're not doing live events at Inspiring Talks Brighton, and I have made the decision to not, for the time being, carry on with the online meeting. But what I wanted to do is make sure that we're still delivering fantastic stories, fantastic speeches, and so who better than to do our very first sort of interview inspiring talk is the lovely Sally Garozzo. So she's here and she's going to talk. So I will give you a bit of background about Sally if you don't know her. So Sally Garozzo is a rapid transformational therapist and a menopause mindset coach. She was also the founder of Inspiring Talks Brighton. And thankfully, from Sally, I ended up becoming the host. So really, really lucky. But she's also been a singing coach since the year 2000. She's hugely passionate about innovative approaches to health and well-being, which are rooted in neuroscience, so in here. She has first-hand experience with dissolving personal challenges linked to perimenopause, such as chronic anxiety, depression, insomnia, weight gain, stress and burnout, and other issues like that's really hard to say, degenerative disc disease, relationship issues, money blocks, paralyzing perfectionism, which I love that, sugar cravings and codependency, and is her mission to enable women to rewrite their childhood conditioning so that they can have a happy menopause transition. Who doesn't want to have a happy menopause transition? So I'm going to hand over to Sally, who is going to do a wonderful talk for us today. I'm going to write down a few questions as we go through. So I'm going to ask her a few questions at the end. And then you can find a little bit more about where you can find Sally, how she can help you, which she will tell you at the end. So Sally, would you like to introduce the title of your talk, or do you just want to go with the flow?
So the title of the talk is really How Your Mind Affects Your Menopause. Yeah.
Sounds perfect. So over to you.
Lovely. Okay, so hi everyone, lovely to be here, and thank you Lisa for inviting me. So before I dive into this topic, I first want to do a bit of a public service announcement. Okay, so if you are 35 years old plus and you're not already thinking about menopause, you need to be thinking about menopause, because the perimenopause can last it can be up to 15 years before the end of your last period. And there are around 32, 33 different symptoms, ranging from, I'm going to list some of them: anxiety, palpitations, brain fog, hot flushes, night sweats, tinnitus, IBS, headache, joint pain, itchy skin, hair falling out, sore boobs, acne, insomnia, panic, low mood, depression. Now, if any of this is sounding familiar and you think it could be linked to the perimenopause, then I would just encourage you to start looking into it. Okay, so here's where my speech begins. There is a lot of information out there about how your menopause affects your mind and the effects of this declining estrogen, declining testosterone and progesterone, resulting in these symptoms, like I've said, brain fog, anxiety, low mood, depression, lack of confidence. But there's very little out there about how we use our minds to influence our menopause. And as a hypnotherapist, that's what I'm really interested in. So to back this up, I thought you might like to know about this study that I found out about from the Mayo Clinic that showed there was a correlation between women who had adverse childhood experiences and a bit of recent trauma and more severe menopause symptoms. So I thought that was hugely interesting. And when I discovered it, like, my mind was blown, because instinctively I kind of knew that, but there was no sort of scientific evidence that I'd seen. And when I saw that, the penny finally dropped, because when I looked at the type of clients that were coming to me for RTT, which kind of clears out the past, I could see that they were mainly all women in their midlife going through menopause, usually with bad symptoms, whether they'd correlated it to menopause and the whole midlife transition or not. So there was this big penny drop moment for me. So yes, declining hormones affects your mind and the way that you feel, but also your mind has the ability to positively affect your menopause. Because if your mind can make your menopause worse, which we know it can because of the childhood trauma, then it must be able to make it better. That's just common sense. So some of you listening to this might have heard of the placebo effect. And your mind has the power to influence your body in a way that science is only beginning to understand. But of course, you know, us therapists and healers, we've known this for a long time, and science is catching up now. But this is where it gets exciting. This is where I believe that hypnosis could be wildly effective, not only at reducing stress, which is so key for a successful menopause, stress reduction, but potentially elevating our sex hormones back up. So turning the dial back up on some of those sex hormones. Because, you know, if we can grow muscle, if we can grow nerves, just by using the power of our mind, why can't we re-elevate our sex hormones? So I want to talk about the influence of the imagination on the body. So in 2004, there was a study done by scientists at the Department of Biomedical Engineering at the Lerner Research Institute in Cleveland. And they found that simply by imagining repeating an exercise over and over again, they found an increase in muscle strength. And the increase was 35%. As opposed to 53% in the participants that actually did the exercise. So the exercise was this, lifting and lowering their little finger, and ones that actually did it over, I can't remember the time scale, but ones that actually did it got a 53% increase in muscle strength, and the ones that simply imagined it got a 35% increase. So this is actually quite amazing. It's not 53%, but it's not zero either. So I think that goes to show it, you know, there are many other studies like that, but studies like that really are really telling us how the mind is affecting the body. And there are other, you know, more day-to-day ways that we know that the imagination has a physical effect on the body. If you imagine right now sucking a lemon, you will start to salivate, excuse me. If you imagine drinking washing up liquid, you will start to feel that bitter taste in your mouth. If you start to imagine your wildest sexual fantasy, you probably will start to get aroused, right? If you imagine that worst case scenario, you can start to elevate your adrenaline just like that. If you imagine your favorite cream cake, you are going to want that cream cake. You're going to have this overwhelming urge to go seek it out, to go find it and go eat it. So these are very simple things that we know. And we know that the imagination is a very powerful tool, but most of us are using it in the wrong way. And here's why: because the flavor of what you imagine tends to come from your subconscious mind, which tends to come from childhood programming, which more often than not can be unhelpful, and in some cases can be very toxic. So what about if we spent 20 minutes a day focusing on our symptom clearing, focusing on what we want? What about if we spent that time using our imagination to really power up those systems and processes in the body? What if we used our imagination to command our cells to function perfectly and properly, exactly the way nature intended? So by understanding how visualization works, we can start to understand how we could help menopause symptom severity, how we could make it better for us. So I love David R. Hamilton, who wrote this book, How Your Mind Can Heal Your Body. And in this, he talks about the 6 ways that visualization actually works. So I'm going to talk you through those now. So visualization works because it impacts your immune system. And we know that having a balanced, strong, healthy immune system means less inflammation in the body. And, you know, when we have a lot of inflammation in the body, it's not going to help us stress. It's not going to help our hormones. It's not going to help anything. It's certainly not going to help digestion. It's going to make joint pain worse. It's going to make headaches worse. It's going to hinder those detoxification pathways as well. It's not going to help with mood and our general sense of comfort in the body. We know that we can positively affect our immune system through the power of visualization. There's plenty of evidence for that. We know that visualization has a direct effect on the nervous system as well. The nervous system is involved with every function in the body, from temperature regulation, hormone activation, digestion, mood, confidence. And all of these things, if you've got more confidence, if your nervous system's working better, you're going to feel better about yourself. And we know that confidence and self-worth takes a massive hit at menopause. The third way that it affects us is that visualization has a direct effect on our neuropeptides. And neuropeptides are these small proteins that affect the way that we feel. So when we visualize a loving situation, we get a dose of oxytocin, which is a neuropeptide, which lowers blood pressure, it regulates the heart rate, it plays a role in digestion, all things that we need to reduce stress and help us have a better menopause. When our stress levels are reduced, our sex hormones can then be prioritized a bit more. When we have too much stress, our sex hormones are deprioritized because nature doesn't want you to make a baby if you are stressed. It just wants you to stay alive. So visualization helps because it enables a person to feel empowered rather than hopeless. And when we are doing something about our issues, it really enables us to feel more positive, and it makes us to feel more empowered. And those feelings, the positivity, the optimism, and the power, the empoweredness, will have a healing effect on the body. Visualization impacts our positive belief sense. So a belief about a certain thing will create a chemical change in the brain. We know it is the placebo effect. It's been studied over and over again, and that is going to have a positive effect on your menopause, on your stress, on your symptoms, on your hormones. And lastly, it's about willpower, and it's about will, it's about choices, it's about where we're focusing our attention. So visualization just enables us to feel like we're more in control, we're doing something to help ourselves, and those positive psychological states will reduce stress. They will reduce helplessness and fear. So you can see that there are many, many, many reasons to use hypnosis, visualization, the power of subconscious reprogramming to positively affect your menopause transition. So that, in a nutshell, is how your mind affects your menopause. That's it.
Simple.
Simple.
but actually, it's really funny because I have always thought in my head that my menopause will be fine. I've always thought that because I've done a lot to keep my health good. So I exercise, I eat well, I sleep well, I don't get to bed late, don't smoke, blah, blah, blah. So in my head, I'm like, my menopause is going to be fine. But it's really interesting what you just talked about. I was interested in that trauma in childhood because my sister had a very, very traumatic birth, and she's had a very bad menopause. That's really interesting. I'd never heard of that before.
Yeah, and neither had I. And you see it a lot with women who have really, really struggled with, hot flushes. They could be the most healthiest people on the planet. But if there's something in their past, because what we tend to forget is past trauma stays in the nervous system, and it becomes a stress. And even though consciously we're not thinking about it, that stress is still in the nervous system. And so RTT is one way you can deal with it. There are many other modalities. There's somatic therapy, yoga, breathing. When you proper breath work, you get to release it. And I just think do whatever you can, really.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And the work that I do with my cranial, very, very often we work on the emotional levels, and you get a release, and you can either feel it, or it can be a sigh, or somebody might suddenly cry or laugh, and it is that release, isn't it? And I guess with RTT, that's exactly what is happening.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. There is usually there's a crying. Sometimes there's a lot of yawning. There could be some shaking. There could be some fidgeting. There's definitely a lot of deep breaths and and that sort of thing, which you don't really associate with the letting go, but the body is letting go all of the time, and this is subconscious. We're not aware of it. It's under our awareness. And we do it when we stretch. We're letting go of the day and the tiredness. So
it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating.
Thank you.
So I think that you've been doing some hypnosis recordings or something recently, haven't you? You've got some things coming out. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about those?
Yeah, so I'm really excited. This is my first launch, my first online launch, my first foray into the online world of selling online. And I've created some really innovative hypnosis recordings, which I think are really specialized, totally unique, and they're designed to help alleviate some of the most debilitating symptoms of menopause. So I've got one called Cool Your Hot Flush, Ignite Your Libido and Clear Your Brain Fog. And they work in the ways that I've been telling you in this talk. They really do help to change the body chemistry and to command and instruct your cells to function differently in a way that you want. So by listening to these recordings every day for 30 days, you get the repetition, and the mind learns through repetition. So we need that repetition. They don't work if you listen to them once. You have to listen to them every day. And plus you get time for yourself. So a lot of the complaints that I hear, women don't have enough time for themselves. They're stressed, they're rushing. They don't want to meditate because their mind's too much like a monkey mind. With these hypnosis recordings, that doesn't matter. You just go in a room somewhere, shut the door, get under the duvet, close your eyes, and it talks you through. So you're not having to do anything. You can just let go. Yeah. So they are available from sallygarozzo.com/shop. And they're $24.99 each, or you can buy all three for $59.99, which is a saving of £15.
Excellent. And I have to say, I did trial your hot flushes one. You sent it to me to have a go at.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating, because I found, as I was going through the recording, that a couple of times the hot flushes came, but specifically when you were talking about it building, and it was really good. And I've only done it once. I have to admit, I've only done it once so far. It has made a difference already, because they were coming more often. It wasn't bothering me, as in it's not debilitating, but I was certainly aware of the heat coming and going more often than normal. So it was interesting to do it. And you've got such a lovely voice. It's really nice to listen to. And as you say, it's so nice to shut the door and have that time. Have that time for yourself. So it's so important.
It's a reason, isn't it? It's a reason to go away, shut the door. I'm doing my hypnosis recording. Don't disturb me. And it's not like it's a meditation. But you're right. Like, some people have said that the flush can come because I'm talking about it, and then it sort of subsides and disappears after that. But it gives you much more awareness of how to deal with them when they arise. So not to panic. I know many women panic when they have a hot flush because it can be very visible as well on some women. But you'll have to go and have a listen. There's some snippets on the website so you can get a flavour of what they sound like.
So sallygarozzo.com is your website.
Yeah.
And where else can people find you? Because you also do a podcast, don't you? Menopause Mindset podcast?
That's it. So I do the Menopause Mindset podcast, which is available wherever you get your podcasts. And I interview guests on that podcast. I've also got a YouTube channel where I upload all of my sort of strategy content, my meaty content. And that is bit.ly/YouTube Sally.
Okay. Yes. And I came and guested on one of your shows the other day.
with you and
Ali.
Lydia and Ali, Dr. Ali.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we run a monthly online Zoom call, which is a question and answer session with myself, with Dr. Ali Grimston, who's a hormone expert and a functional medicine practitioner and a GP, and Livia Francis, who's a award-winning athlete. Nothing she doesn't know about exercise. Yeah, so we do a Q&A. For that, you just go to bit.ly/let's talk menopause.
Yeah, and that's a really good option, because then people, if they want to come in and ask a question, they can come in and get involved. It was really good fun coming on.
Yeah, it was good to have you, Lisa. Yeah, it was really good. It was
really
a nice
good
session.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you, Sally. It's been lovely to talk to you in a different way for Inspiring Talks Brighton. We will be back at some point. I don't know how it's gonna be, what it's gonna look like yet, but for now, I think this is a really nice way to be able to still give people those inspiring talks, and let them listen. So thank you so much for being my guest today.
You're so welcome, and I wish you all the luck with it. I'm sure it's going to be amazing.
Thank you, Sally. You take care.